You're listening to the Lou Stokes podcast, real and inspiring conversations with individuals from all over the world who have become their own icon. Be inspired to take action and step into your best stylish life. Hi, and welcome to the Lou Stokes podcast. On today's episode, I'm very lucky to have Emma-Louise Follows on with me. She is the founder of Eat, Live Wellness, medical herbalist and wellness expert. Hi, Louise. Louise, saying my own name there. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Lou. Yeah, really lovely to be here and to sort of meet you virtually.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to talk about wellness and Ayurveda and all these wonderful things.
Yeah.
So would you like to just kind of go into a little bit more depth about you, how you ended up in wellness, what you were doing before maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was a bit of an unusual career path because my career is actually in law. I'm a solicitor and I still am. I'm still a practicing solicitor for a corporate company. But nowadays I only do that one day a week and I'm running this my wellness business. So almost full time now. And the reason for the transition was essentially like a lot of people with sort of small businesses these days. Like I basically kind of selling a product that has helped me and just sort of selling a lifestyle that's helped me. I was really, really run down in my 30s. And when I had my second child, Ethan, my health just started failing. I became quite chronically ill. And I was just looking to heal myself because it got to the point where I'd gone back and forth to the GP, the doctor, and, sort of ended up being prescribed like a 4th course of antibiotics in a row for one of the things that was wrong with me. And then I just kind of thought, no, this is wrong. This is the last straw kind of thing, because clearly this is not making me better in the long run. If anything, then I started getting into gut health. And we know now that antibiotics, although they might clear up an infection, they're actually kind of ruining your gut flora, which is the foundation of your immune system. So having kind of been through that and got to that point, I thought, okay, it's time to take matters into my own hands health-wise. Literally just started researching things on Google and came across so many sort of accounts of natural healing sort of stories that I felt really inspired, basically. And I just kind of knew, no, I can turn this around myself. Started sort of experimenting with things that specifically heal the gut, like fermented food, for example, making my own kimchi, because I couldn't, at that point, I couldn't find any raw, sort of unpasteurized stuff that was actually, that actually tasted good. And just, sort of transformed my health. And then from there, I kind of got into Ayurveda and medical herbalism and just looking at, so not even just the gut, but like everything holistically, which just made complete intuitive sense to me. And and then I just thought, God, this needs to be available. So literally sort of set up a farmer's market stall while I was on maternity leave still. Yeah. And then just went from there. And now, because I wasn't happy just selling, sort of jars of kimchi, for example, I wanted people to have that transformation. We sell 3-day Ayurvedic Cleanse Boxes each season that just enable people to really kind of step off that hamster wheel, really sort of detox, heal, and reset. And then we do sort of products to have in between, like the kimchi and stuff. But yeah, it all came from my personal journey of kind of healing myself.
Right, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it, how the traditional medicine is so far away from the natural stuff. I really wish they would. I know they are coming together more, but it just seems like there's still like a little bit of, quite a big gap, isn't there?
Yeah.
But if they came together, then it would make a completely different, it would make it a lot easier for everyone as well, I think, to really, take their health into their own hands as well. Not to be like, oh, go to the doctor, he's going to give me a pill.
Yeah.
Right? Because we can actually do things to prevent and to heal ourselves. The answer isn't always take a pill.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can really integrate the approaches. There's no, when all the sort of, there was loads of controversy with the COVID vaccines, it really seemed to split people. I feel like into two camps, like like pro-vaccine and science, and then, sort of anti-vaxxers. And I just thought, no, like there's an approach, like you do that kind of just sort of symbolizes how things tend to be generally. People always feel that they have to kind of be in one camp or the other.
Right.
And actually, often, sort of integrate and just look at the circumstances. So, there are things that you'd absolutely want to go to your GP for, first of all. But, sort of with a background of, sort of eating in a way that supports your wellness and knowing that certain conditions, you don't, like, so many things are preventable and even treatable sort of naturally. So it's not one or the other, they can entirely, sort of like we've got the benefit of all this science, so we should use that. But we can also, but also I think we lean on Western medicine so much because it's often so quick, isn't it? Like an anti.
Yeah.
So, we're very sort of quick fix these days, and we don't always need to do that. And often if you can do something in a natural sort of holistic way, if you can do it in that way, it's going to have less side effects potentially, and just be more supportive generally. So yeah, there's a place for it all, I think. And it's just about sort of tuning in and, doing your research and being sensible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's important to realise as well that we want to look at what's causing what's going on, and not just, oh, this is happening to me, I'm going to take this pill and then it's gone. I feel like some way society feels very safe going to the GP, but sometimes when there's these other healing alternatives, people are a little bit suspicious in some way. And I think when we can start to learn to integrate different healing alternatives into our daily life, even if there's nothing really wrong with us, I think it's really great to do acupuncture, massages, eat healthily, do some cleanses, just to keep yourself, it's like cleaning a car. You wouldn't just not clean your car, would you?
No, exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's what I like about sort of the herbal medicine and also like the Ayurvedic approach as well. It is very holistic, and it's just understanding that there's, particularly if you're into spirituality, it's much easier to sort of wrap your head around and to understand. But it's just understanding that, sort of nothing happens just independently. The body works as a whole.
Right.
So, sort of everything that's happening physically will have a mental component as well, like an emotional component. So it's really, the whole point of Ayurveda, which is the oldest system of healthcare, like natural system of healthcare in the world. It originates from India, but it shares lots of parallels with other sort of healing traditions as well. The whole thing there is just to sort of recognize that, essentially you're a spiritual person. You've got an energy type, for example, so it's called a dosha, and your doshic profile, will mean that you're sort of susceptible to certain, sort of going out of balance in certain areas. And once you sort of know that, it just makes it so much easier to sort of understand what's going on and what's underlying, sort of illnesses, which are just expressions of imbalance.
Right, exactly. And what is it about the Ayurvedic philosophy that, you're most drawn to? Because, I mean, there's so many different, there's Chinese medicine, there's macrobiotic. What is it about Ayurveda that attracts you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that I kind of stumbled upon, to be honest, at the yoga show. And I think when something's meant for you, you just have a sense, you just have it. It's a sense of like, almost like remembering, you're not learning something new. It's almost like homecoming, like, yeah, this is what I was missing. This is, this is knowledge that was kind of within me already, and it just needed to be awakened. So It was that, I think. And then just, sort of re-studying it and, sort of reading more about how, we look, because really the whole point of Ayurveda, when people sort of approach it on a more basic level, it's all about, okay, what dosha are you? Are you Vata, Pitta, Kapha?
Yeah.
And and therefore what should you eat? Should you eat spicy food or shouldn't you? And that's great. That's like definitely sort of entry level. But then what you realize is all of that is just a means to an end of kind of sort of transcending, in a spiritual sense. So it's very much you bring the body into balance so that you can kind of open up and evolve spiritually. And for me, because I'm, sort of really drawn to spirituality and that sort of fits in with my understanding of how the world works. That just makes sense to me, sort of intuitively. So within Ayurveda, it's all about sort of healing imbalance within the body so that you can then kind of go deeper into the sort of spiritual, into a more spiritual level.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I don't study Ayurveda, but I follow it a lot because obviously I think, I'm a yoga teacher as well. So I've been teaching for probably about 13 years now, and I'm very Vata dominant.
Yeah.
And so again, it was like something that really resonated with me, more so than, for example, Chinese medicine. I think I found it easier to understand for whatever reason, and it resonated more with me. And it's such a fascinating philosophy. And like you said, whenever I'm feeling out of balance, I just have to do a few things just to set me back up again. It's, especially with Vata, we're so up in the air, aren't we?
Yes.
So as soon as I leave those routines I have, no matter how small they are kind of thing, but they're just like that everyday routine that really keeps me grounded. I can feel it straight away. I'll be away for 4 days on holiday and maybe relax a little bit and not bother doing it. And then I'm like, whoa, I can feel, I can feel myself off in the ether as,
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And it makes sense that you'd be maybe more drawn to Ayurveda than TCM, tradition, like Chinese medicine, because actually Chinese medicine was based on Ayurveda. So Ayurveda came first, and then it sort of traveled along the Silk Road, and then Chinese medicine was developed there in that culture. So they've basically taken the sort of structure of Ayurveda, but then they've added a few things that, they felt they wanted to bring in. So there's other energy types, for example. But actually, so I would say Ayurveda is sort of, it's like the foundation, and it's probably more simple to understand because there's less going on. Because with TCM, they've kind of added to it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm tridoshic, but I tend to go into Vata imbalance quite easily. So I can definitely relate to what you were saying about being, sort of feeling all over the place if you don't kind of ground and, sort of deliberately adhere to some kind of structure in your life. So whereas, for example, a Kapha type, they're very earthy, they're very, they're just naturally, they're going to have structure and routine. That's basic. If anything, they need shaking out of that routine. Whereas we as Vata, sort of me leaning towards Vata, need to sort of consciously bring that in, even when it might feel a bit uncomfortable to do it because we're so happy just going off like balloons, sort of everywhere.
Yeah.
So we need to sort of tether ourselves a bit in order to feel supported, in order to feel safe. And because then when we don't, not only does it show up in sort of anxiety and just this general sense of feeling sort of all over the place, but then it also starts to show up in the body, which is, sort of how Ayurveda explains that everything's linked. So that's when we're going to start getting sort of literally too much air in our system. Sort of feeling just as though we're sort of too cold, too airy, and it just kind of shows up on every level.
Yeah.
So right. Once you understand it, it makes it really easy. It's not like a difficult, and now I have to do this to-do list. It just becomes intuitive to kind of, rebalance yourself.
Right, absolutely. And how easy is it to adapt these, Ayurveda to more of like a Western lifestyle? Because obviously, here in Spain, we don't go to bed till late, especially in the summer, and the whole eating times are very different.
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people sometimes struggle with that because, they maybe go to some Ayurvedic retreat or, they go to India or whatever, or they're really into Ayurveda, but they find it very difficult to actually kind of adapt to their own lifestyle. Have you got any tips on?
Yeah, I do actually, because, and I definitely see what you mean, because if you learn, I think now, like there's lots of modern Ayurvedic practitioners, you know, sort of trying to make it like more, trying to sort of show you how to do this. But I think I can definitely see the issue, because if you read the traditional Ayurvedic books or you go on a retreat, for example, you'll be eating, you know, sort of all the Indian food, which is lovely, but not necessarily the stuff that you're going to cook on a regular basis at home. You know, yes, you'll be able to get up, you know, with the sun and do your yoga and, you know, sort of go to bed, go to bed quite early. But yeah, as you say, it doesn't necessarily fit in with our culture, like in the West, and particularly like Mediterranean culture. But I think that's why that's the beauty of Ayurveda. It's not strict rules. It's very much just principles. So when you really understand your dosha type, your energy type, then you can make it fit the life that you're living. So for example, with Vata, the main point isn't that you have to eat a curry, for example. It's that you have to eat something warming and grounding.
Yeah.
The main point isn't that you necessarily need to, I mean, they do have some guidance with times to get up and go to bed, but the main point is that you're having structure and that you are allowing yourself to sleep and wind down, for example. So provided you understand what the main principles are, like what we're trying to achieve and why, then you can kind of, sort of tweak it so that it suits you. So you don't necessarily need to follow like a traditional dinacharya or Ayurvedic daily routine, but you can think, okay, I do tend to be ungrounded. So whatever time I need to get up, depending on what I'm doing, I'm going to set aside 45 minutes to do the following, for example, whether it's tongue scraping, oil swishing, eating a grounding breakfast, maybe something warm and easy to digest if you're a Vata. And then it's not just that those practices are going to support you, which they will, but it's also with Vata, the routine of it and the ritual of it, which is going to help. So even if you are going to bed a bit later, just having like a bedtime routine, for example, almost like you would with a child,
yes.
It's going to be so vital. It's going to make you feel safe, and physically your body's going to know what's coming, so your body can relax into it as well, which is vital with Vata, for example.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. Yeah, I don't have a particularly good bedtime routine. I've got a good morning one, but not. Yeah, I find the nighttime a little bit more difficult, actually. So that's a good point.
Yeah, even like maybe having like a reminder on your phone, like, right, it's time to start winding down. And then just a series of things that you do that are like even just 3 things that are non-negotiable. They're going to support you winding down. And just the fact of doing them is going to kind of trigger to you, oh, okay, it's bedtime.
Yeah, it's relaxed. Yeah. Because sometimes I can feel quite like energetic from the day, especially if I've, sometimes I teach yoga quite late here. And so it's like, I'm almost like really not wired, but I've got energy. So my body's like, I don't actually want to go to bed right now, but it's like, no, come on. So it's definitely a good idea. I hadn't thought about
because it sounds as though in the day you're in your pitta, so you're using, because even though we have our sort of predominant mind body types, we all have a bit of sort of each of the doshas in us, and we need them to do certain things. So when you're going to bed, basically what you're looking to do is to transition from pitta, the fire dosha, which you've been employing to be a teacher, because that's a very pitta, even though yoga is quite Vata in nature, being a teacher and having to lead, sort of a class and be, like have that sort of energy is very sort of pitta. So you're basically having to transition from that energy to kapha energy. So neither of those are your predominant dosha. Kapha is, the sort of earthy, sort of slower, sort of energy that you want for sleep. So just knowing that, you could think, okay, right, so maybe some barefoot walking, for example, to earth and to ground me, like beforehand, sort of basically you're looking to kind of quell the fire a little bit and to get into that sort of earthy, slow energy, maybe a magnesium bath, for example, and just stuff that you can do that's gradual as well, because you can't expect yourself to just immediately switch from one state of being to the other. So so just having like a little sort of routine around that would probably really serve.
Yeah,
serve you.
absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
So, Emma, what are some of the main issues that people come to you with?
Yeah. So I tend to find, because with my business, it's sort of the main thing that we do is supply, sort of seasonal cleanses. But my customers tend to be, sort of around my age. So, sort of anywhere from kind of 30s, sort of to 50s, essentially, and particularly sort of people who are in that sort of going into that perimenopause phase. So I get a lot of queries in relation to that. And something I do from time to time is one-to-ones with people. And that is probably one of the main things that come up, like hormonal disturbances. And what people tend to find in the perimenopause stage, that's, sort of anywhere from about 35 to, sort of 50s, is that they are experiencing the effects of what would essentially be an estrogen dominance. And I sort of say that in inverted commas because you're not actually in that period of life. We don't actually have any extra estrogen. But what's happening is our progesterone levels are dropping. Our estrogen levels are dropping too. The progesterone, which controls the estrogen, is dropping at a quicker rate. So our body experiences it as an estrogen dominance because it's essentially got, sort of the ratio has increased for estrogen. And what that can mean if you think of sort of PMT symptoms, the swollen breasts, maybe swollen lumpy breasts, mood swings, just the irritability, that kind of thing. Just, that sort of happening a lot and just feeling like you're going mad.
Oh, God.
Brain fog, those kind of symptoms that we, usually can just kind of expect when our period is coming tend to happen more, it's more pronounced and it's happening, sort of a lot more. And you can just feel like you're going a bit mad, actually, in that sort of perimenopause phase. So I get that query a lot. And what's great is that it is something that's really very possible. Obviously, it's not, everyone has different hormones, so it could be something else, and you can, obviously have tests to find out. But it is very common, sort of at this sort of phase in life. So it's really sort of possible to actually adjust your hormones and like bring yourself into balance with just completely natural methods in this sort of phase, which I think is amazing, because you don't necessarily need to sort of go to your doctor and sort of have synthetic sort of interventions if you don't need to. So that's something that I tend to sort of advise on and just give guidance on if you wanted to sort of hear more about that.
Right. And what would be like a couple of tips if you are like perimenopause? Like what kind of things would be good to do to kind of get you more balanced?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So a couple of really great and really effective science-based sort of natural remedies to just balance things out in perimenopause. Like one herb, for example, would be chasteberry.
Okay.
It's also Vitex, and you can have that in tincture form. And what I tend to do is just to take that in the morning in some warm water. And the thing that chasteberry does is it reduces it helps the body to clear out estrogen and to reduce, sort of, because there are different types of estrogen, and it just helps the body to regulate bad estrogen.
Okay.
That can cause problems, sort of, because you don't want too much, sort of certainly of certain types of estrogen sort of circulating your body, because that can lead to, some health issues. So, so chasteberry is a really nice, gentle tincture that will just help you to sort of naturally bring that into balance. Another really helpful natural remedy is broccoli sprouts. So not just normal broccoli, but actual broccoli sprouts, which like quite nice tasting. You can literally just sprout them yourself, like in a few days, and it's quite easy to do. Or you can buy them from most health shops. You can buy some nice sort of organic ones from health shops, and you can just have those in salads, and you want to be eating quite a lot. If you just know that it's going to be a pain, you can actually get it in capsule form as well.
Oh, wow.
So I can provide you with a link, actually, because what you want is one with, sort of high degree of sulforaphane, which is, again, what's helping you to regulate those hormone levels in perimenopause and sort of deal with unwanted estrogen. Another couple of ingredients which are really helpful as well, just in terms of a general hormone balancing effect, are reishi mushroom.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. And also ashwagandha, which is a really popular Ayurvedic herb, and they just have a general sort of balancing effect on the hormones. And the nice thing about that is that you can literally just get that in sort of organic ground form, and sort of you could even make a latte with it, like sort of you can get mushroom coffee these days, that kind of thing. And you just want small but consistent doses of these things. You don't need to be taking loads. So with reishi and ashwagandha, you could just work it into a smoothie, for example, or your morning coffee, and take it in that form. And that's just going to have a general sort of balancing effect on everything, and just kind of keep things level for the perimenopause phase. And then when we all tend to sort of go into menopause, then there are other things that you can do. Other sort of more sort of stronger interventions you might want to bring in, but for peri, natural remedies really have been proven to be really effective.
That's amazing. Yeah, I know people are talking a lot more about perimenopause now, but they never were they really? I mean, I know in England it's massive now. In Spain it's still this. I'm starting to see people talking about it more, but I know in England definitely there's a lot more information and people talking about it, which is great, because I don't think I was ever really aware of it, to be quite honest.
No, I wasn't. I mean, I'd obviously heard about menopause, and you see your mum or an older female relative sort of go through stuff, and you just have a vague understanding. But I think it's great, particularly if you're in the wellness space, like you will be hearing about perimenopause and all the sort of different things that we can do. And what I love is all of these things, it's just about understanding what's going, again, just getting to the root cause of things, understanding what's going on with my body. Oh, it's because this hormone has become slightly imbalanced, which is completely normal. And this is what I can do to just help it, sort of give it that support.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's empowering, taking these things into your own hands instead of just being like, oh, okay, well, just go to the doctor. And then maybe with perimenopause, I don't know what the doctor gives you. I don't know if he even, if there is anything really you can take, I guess HRT in some form of, or another maybe.
Possibly. Yeah, they tend to, that tends to be sort of more towards the end and as you're going into menopause, I think. But the contraceptive pill is often just like handed
out. Wow.
For all sorts of, for like anything hormone related in my experience. And I mean, it's up to the person, because also I don't like to be too definitive, because, sometimes synthetic, medication is what that person needs at that point in their life. But for me, I'm drawn to natural remedies, and particularly where I know they're science backed and they work. Like, I'm happy to give it a few months and just kind of let it all kind of absorb and start doing it, start working its magic. So that's we've got I have a sort of a supplement that you can add to a smoothie or something, which has like the reishi in it, the ashwagandha, also probiotics and that kind of thing. And I call it magic, in fact, which is why I think I thought to say work its magic, because these things do work like magic. That's why I named it that.
You know what? I was taking that and it got rid of candida.
Really? Amazing.
Yeah.
So happy to hear that. Yeah, it's got a specific probiotic in it. Funnily enough, a probiotic yeast that fights bad yeast. So I'm so happy to hear that testimonial.
It's amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, that's in our 3-day cleanse actually. And I just think, it just makes me so happy when I hear that, people are kind of trying these things and they're working, that's the whole point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit more about the detoxes, because there are thousands of different detoxes, aren't there? I mean, we're bombarded with all these different things: juice detox, I don't know, there's water fasts.
Yes.
What is it about the 3-day Ayurveda detox that you offer? What is...
So what I offer is, and it's very much inspired by Ayurveda, although it's not the strict, it's not just a Khichdi cleanse, which is what it's kind of called in Ayurveda. So in Ayurveda, like on a seasonal basis, but particularly spring and autumn, you might do what's called panchakarma, which is basically like quite an intense detox process. I don't know if you've had any experience of it.
No, but I'd like to.
Oh yeah,
yes.
It's something that you sort of gear yourself up, and because they do have some quite intense sort of detox practices there, and it's all on the sort of principle that every not necessarily every single season, but certainly at intervals, we need to let our body detox and heal. We need to support our body doing that, because of course our body has detox organs and it's naturally, sort of always detoxing itself. But because of our lives, the sort of constant like toxic load that we're exposed to, often we need some more support, in helping in sort of allowing our bodies to detox. And just like you don't just brush your teeth once, it should be like a regular, sort of practice. So, taking some inspiration from that, the diet that you eat when you do that, sort of very intense, often 10-day detox is a diet, a very simple diet of Khichdi, which is a dish that's, lentils and rice and, some healing medicinal spices. But what I wanted to do is, because not everybody is going to want to, head off to India or, find an Ayurvedic spa where, you live and like commit to this very intense process. And it's not for everyone anyway.
Yes.
But what I just felt there was a real need for me, sort of initially. And then I thought, let's make this available, because I think everyone should be doing this, is a way of doing that just in our ordinary lives, just taking 3 days to basically kind of come off the hamster wheel, although you can still, go to work and do what you need to do. But just from a health perspective, taking 3 days every season or a couple of times a year, just to kind of consciously, sort of remove all the toxins and the stuff that we're bombarding us with, and just go into kind of a cleanse, but one that's very supportive and doesn't sort of tax your body unnecessarily, because a lot of detoxes out there are, the juice cleanses, for example, or there's, you can do sort of water fasts and complete fasts. And those can be amazing depending on your dosha type, depending on your mind-body type. But, if for a lot of people, that would be far too much, and you might actually cause more harm to your body than help. If you just sort of shock your body by taking away, sort of food for an extended period, even if you're replacing it with juice, that's doing a juice fast might work for, say, a pitta, for example, someone who naturally has a lot of fire, and maybe a pitta who lives in a hot climate. But for anyone else, it can work, but cold juices, will, in Ayurvedic terms, sort of dampen your agni, your digestive fire. They might not contain enough nutrients and just simply calories. And then if your body goes into kind of a shock mode because you've just suddenly, sort of deprived it of, food, it can actually be counterproductive.
Yeah.
So what I like about this approach, sort of the more Ayurvedic approach, which is what we're inspired by, is that you are eating. You have a smoothie for your breakfast, or you can have it in porridge form, with like a buckwheat porridge. This is all contained in the box. Then there's a lunch and dinner, which is like Khichdi basically, but it's a vegan. We do it our box completely plant-based. The medicinal spices are there. You have oils before your lunch and dinner just to sort of lubricate you internally and, to help carry the nutrients around. And then you have that supplement, the magic supplement I mentioned, which is giving your body all the adaptogens it needs, the herbs. And then there are herbal teas as well, which we create. We, sort of make everything by hand, which is supporting your liver and supporting your gut as well. So, and it's not even just what's in the box. It's also, we give you detox yoga to do, sort of for the 3 days. So it's very much in hypnotherapy so that you're aligning your mind as well. So it's literally like we are taking care of you for 3 days with this package and just making sure there's journaling as well in the booklet, and just making sure it just hits everything, it just kind of takes care of you in every way. So rather than, just almost like punishing your body, which is where I think some of these other detoxes come from. Even the marketing around them is very much like, it's sort of austere and you're like almost like you're full of toxins and
harsh
and, exactly, get rid of all this toxic buildup in your gut. I just saw on Facebook.
Oh God.
It's very it turns out that product is basically, I just had a look at the ingredients, it's just a combination of laxatives basically, but
wow.
It can be very like, I'm very much like, what energy is something coming with?
Absolutely.
With just pure love, pure self-love. Let's heal, let's, nourish you into balance. Let's, like you will, like if you need to lose weight, you will, because, of the portions and the type of sort of light food it is, but it's not, you're wrong and you need to, you need to sort of be cured in this way. It's very much like, it's coming from a place of love, support, nourishment, nourishing you back into balance.
It's like a reset. Yeah, right. And it's kind of like 3 days to take some time just to really go inwards, I guess. And
exactly. And just support your body and what it's trying to do anyway, which is, detox and heal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be at its best. You're just kind of creating the space to support your body and what it's doing already, and just giving it what it needs to do the job it's trying to do for you anyway.
Yeah. I remember when I did a juice fast once. It was awful. Yeah. I mean, obviously for Vata, that's the worst thing you can do ever. Yeah. I had no idea. I was just like, juice fast. I felt awful, like so ungrounded. I really, it didn't feel good to me at all. And I think we have to be really mindful, like what we're actually doing when we don't really know as well, because like you said, it can cause more harm than good sometimes. Yeah. So it's important to know, what you're doing and what really, whether it's Ayurveda or Chinese medicine or some other kind of, philosophy or modality. It's important to know more about yourself to then be like, okay, well, this is kind of detox will suit me a lot better. But I mean, the Khichdi detox is for everyone, isn't it? It doesn't matter what dose you are.
No, it's completely tridoshic. And then what I do, like each season, is I just, because also each season is a particular energy type. So we're in spring, at the moment, that's very kapha. So what I do is I give you guidance on just tweaking it for your own dosha and just being mindful of the season that we're in.
Right.
So for instance, this season I was advising my cleansers, with the Khichdi, because the one thing that you add is some vegetables to the dish that you have for lunch and dinner. So, I was like, right, lots of green veg, lots of, because that is naturally detoxing. We're in a season where we kind of need that, but it needs to be very well cooked because we're in sort of a cold, damp, still in quite a cold, damp season. So, whereas with summer, we might be able to get away with some raw, so we just tweak it basically for your own dosha and also for the season. But I think that's like the main takeaway with Ayurveda, really. It's all about understanding yourself and, understanding yourself and loving yourself. And then you can come from a place of, okay, now what am I drawn to in this energy, as opposed to, sort of almost like shaming, that sort of shaming energy of, oh, there's something wrong with me that I have to fix. Yeah, it's and I feel like you have the same approach with like your style and fashion,
Yeah.
like like your blog and stuff. It's very much like you sort of get to the root of like, what am I trying to express through through my clothes. It's not about like covering up, for example, or I'm
Absolutely.
wrong, let me
Yeah.
so it's all the same energy, I think.
Yeah, and it's acceptance of who you are and embracing your body,
Yeah,
which is, very much related to the wellness part. For me, style is part
yeah,
of wellness. Like the way
yes,
you show up and express yourself, just like the way you look after your body. You're
yeah,
communicating, you know.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah, it's I think we forget that we're whole. We're not like bits and pieces. We're like a whole being. And when we can
yeah.
really incorporate all these wonderful different practices, we just feel so much better,
Mm.
just being more intentional about everything.
Yeah, I so agree with that. I feel like I read one of your blogs that was about style being like a spiritual
Oh, yeah.
issue. Yeah. And it resonated with me so much because I just felt like, that in itself, in its sense, is like quite an Ayurvedic sort of approach as well, because it's almost like, like, as well as seeing like, oh, if you've got some IBS symptoms, for example, obviously that's like going to be some kind, that's going to show that you're in imbalance. But also, like, if you're like putting aside even the physical stuff, if you're going into the world and you're dressed in a way that's not making you feel comfortable, or one of my friends said she feels like, because she's put a bit of weight on, she's always just dressing to cover up as opposed to enjoying, sort of dressing. And that in itself is another symptom of imbalance, just like, someone who's having some IBS symptoms is a symptom of imbalance.
Yeah.
Anywhere there's, that incongruence shows that you're not, there's some area where, you're not, you need to sort of bring yourself back into balance. And then that's reflected in the fact that you're sort of going out feeling good about yourselves and sort of wanting to put clothes on that feel amazing, and nourishing yourself, like wanting to nourish yourself in a way that feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all at the end of the day, it's all comes from the inside, doesn't it? And then what's occurring like on the outside in a way is just a manifestation of our inner world.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really well said. Yeah.
So I wanted to touch a little bit on gut health because I know you talk a lot about that. Why is gut health so important?
Yeah. So what I came to understand, and that medical science has now kind of come to understand, but all the sort of ancient healers have been saying this for years, is the gut really is the foundation of health. And the reason it is because that is where your immune system is contained. So they've estimated that 60 to 70% of your immune system is basically your gut flora. And what that means, like in sort of more simple terms, is that we have probiotic colonies like living in our gut. So that is our good bacteria. Mm-hmm. And what that bacteria is doing, you can think of it like a little army or a big army. And so illness is caused like often by bad bacteria. So, and obviously we have viruses and stuff, which probiotics will also help with. But what your sort of probiotic soldiers are doing are killing the bad bacteria that will cause illness. So what we want lots of them. We want lots of probiotic, sort of bacteria in there, loads of positive bacteria that has a protective effect for us. And we want lots of different types as well, because each different type will deal with different types of bad bacteria. So that's why eating lots of different fermented food and, possibly also taking probiotics is a really good idea, because you're essentially just bringing in, like increasing the amount of probiotics that you have, and you're increasing the variety as well. And fermented food is actually the best vehicle for probiotics because it's bacteria. So,
Right. Yeah.
so having, sort of food, so having a food source, means that you'll get, it'll be quite plentiful.
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it's essentially what is keeping us well. And we now know that, you know, there's a gut-brain connection as well. So like in terms of mental health, if like the more we do to nourish our gut and to keep it in, you know, sort of really good condition, literally the better we will feel, you know, sort of less susceptible to depression and anxiety will feel. They did this, unfortunately, it was testing with mice. So I don't often refer to this, but there was and people can look it up, but there was a really interesting and really definitive, you know, sort of study done where they kind of, the mice that they gave probiotics to, like they could actually see had a much stronger will to live, like in a certain sort of scenario. And it's a shame it was sort of tested in that way.
Of course.
But the results, you know, did really, it was really quite an amazing sort of evidence of like the power that your gut health has. You know, we think that, you know, like we often think it's just a matter of what we're thinking, you know, that is, you know, sort of causing us to feel happy or sad. But actually it's literally, you know, sort of a case of what's going on with our gut. So yeah, it's the foundation of our health in so many different ways.
Yeah, amazing. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
So just one last question. What would you say to someone who's just about to start, you know, or is starting on their wellness journey? Have you got like 3 tips to give to someone that's just, you know, started to get into it?
Yeah. So I think the first tip, and I'm basically just paraphrasing like what I did that helped me. So I think the first tip would be to, particularly if you are experiencing quite a lot of health issues, is to think about some kind of elimination diet. So that basically means, you know, sort of putting aside a few weeks where you remove the types of food, and you can kind of go as far as you feel you need to with this, but the types of food that we know tend to cause a problem with our health. So some common, you know, some issues would be gluten, for example, dairy. You know, some people, depending on your ancestry, can take dairy, but it doesn't hurt to just get rid of it to see, you know, because a lot of people can't. It's very difficult to digest. So removing gluten, dairy, and refined sugar would be a great place to start. You can do an even more intense version of this with something like it's called the AIP, autoimmune paleo diet, which, you know, where you really sort of get rid of loads of different food groups. But if you're just trying to look at, you know, if you're just a bit run down and you're looking at just trying to perk yourself up generally, I'd just start with those, you know, sort of taking out those 3 things for a couple of weeks just to see how you feel, and keep the focus on what you're bringing in to replace these things as well. So lots more, you know, sort of plants, you know, really well cooked vegetables, lots of water, herbal teas, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Would be great to, because then you're kind of, so that would be the first tip, to sort of remove those inflammatory foods, and then to increase the amount of sort of plants and particularly green vegetables that you're consuming, and make sure they're quite well cooked and digestible, unless they're very light salad greens, because eating indigestible green foods can actually cause some issues, and so that would be the second tip, to sort of bring those things in. And then the third tip is, I would say, so this isn't specifically to do with health, but I would say to have some kind of like meditation practice, and this just enables you to really get in touch with yourself and to tune into what's actually going on within your own body, which I think is vital, because then you'll find that you're drawn to certain things. So I could sort of sit here and say, you know, liposomal vitamin C, for example, or, you know, chasteberry if you're having, you know, you know, sort of perimenopause, you know, or ashwagandha, and these things are usually quite good all-rounders. Like, but like if you have some kind of quiet practice, you know, even if it doesn't even have to be like traditional meditation, but even if it's just like, okay, every day I'm going to go for like a 20-minute walk around the park, no music, no headphones, nothing, just be quiet, you know, a stillness practice, then you will find that because you're listening to yourself more and you're allowing your body to speak to you, it will draw you towards certain things. So, you know, it might say, yeah, actually, I do need those broccoli sprouts. You know, I can't be bothered to sprout them. I'm going to order them from Amazon or whatever. But then you'll find you're drawn to exactly what you need, you know, or, you know, let's try a cleanse, for example.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Or actually, I just need loads more water, or, you know, I need to do some vigorous exercise because I'm feeling sluggish. I think my calf is out of balance, you know. So, so I would say remove the inflammatory foods, let the sort of really health-giving foods crowd, you know, like plants basically crowd out those inflammatory foods, be the second tip. And then a stillness practice, just to tune into yourself and to see what you're drawn to in terms of like going on from there and remedies.
I love that. Thank you so much, Emma. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. It's been really inspiring. I love, you know, everything we've talked about is amazing. Thank you to all our listeners. Emma, just before we go, I'd love you just to share where people can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at _live or live wellness, _wellness. And so I'm quite active there. It's really the only social media I do, so come there. And also, if you go to my website, which is eatlivewellness.co.uk, I have a dosha quiz, just like a 1-minute mind-body dosha quiz that I've created myself. And it will just give you a little snapshot of any, you know, your sort of doshic profile, any kind of current doshic imbalances, and then some advice on like where to start with it, you know, if you're looking to just sort of feel better and just start feeling like you're thriving a bit more.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. It's been great to connect. Thank you to all our listeners. I'll leave all Emma's details in the show notes, and I look forward to sharing more podcasts and more wonderful guests with you all soon. Ciao.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Ciao.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please subscribe to the Lou Stokes podcast. Rate and review in the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're tuning in from. I'd be so grateful. Also, check out the show notes to learn more about my guest and learn more about me on my website, www.loustokes.com. Until next time, be inspired, take action, and become your own icon.